our work towards INC3 with this very important and potentially transformative international legally binding instrument that is being negotiated currently. ISWA has taken many steps towards contributing to the development of this treaty and providing technical inputs. Today, we are going to talk to you, get you through an agenda that will look like this. We are going to start with an intervention from our president, Carlos Silva Filo, on the ISWA's vision from UNIA 5.2 towards INC. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about ISWA action and priorities towards INC3, and especially related to the activities from the from the Plastic Treaty Task Force. Then we're going to have a guest presentation of the Business Coalition for a Plastic Treaty, hosted by Ellen MacArthur Foundation and WWF. And then we're going to have a Q&A session in the end of the meeting. Without no more time to lose, I would like to now give the floor to our ISWA president, Carlos Silva Filo, for his intervention in this webinar.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us today for this very hot topic in terms of the agenda of dealing with this plastic pollution resolution from UNEA and the way towards INC3. So for those who are not familiar, what INC stands for is the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee that has been established by this resolution approved last year by UNEA. We'll talk a little bit about it. And our preparations to be attending this third meeting of the committee, and also to be contributing to this agenda. So next slide, please. Why it all started? It was kind of like a very live and I would say very strong discussions before UNEA 5.2 last year. Several items were on the agenda because we have realized from many institutions, from many reports, from many researches that we are heading towards being very, let's say, leaving a strong footprint in the planet. The human activities are really influencing the planet structures, the planet ecosystems, and this is something that has been realized for a while now, and due this activity, some scientists, and it's getting more common, are calling the current era as the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene because it's when human activities affects the geological structures of the planet. And our activities are not only causing impacts and changing the structures of the planet, but they are also affecting several other aspects from a broader perspective. So next slide, please. This is the reason why some thinkers, some researchers, some institutions, such as the United Nations, are considering the current time, the time when we are facing a triple planetary crisis, a crisis of pollution, of increased pollution, a crisis of biodiversity loss, and a crisis of climate change, a crisis of global warming. So all three at the same time pose some risks, posing some threats to our own perspective and our sustainable continuity inhabiting this planet. Next, please. But we don't have only a crisis of pollution. We don't have only a crisis of climate change. We don't have only a crisis of biodiversity loss. It's also an humanitarian crisis. So the most vulnerable one are really being affected by most of the activities that we are developing now. The most vulnerable ones have their lives, their health affected by inadequate waste management, by air pollution, by loss of access to many natural products. So we are really going in a way that most probably won't reach any success in the future. So this is the reason why, and next slide, please. This is the reason why all these conversations began. This is the reason why there is a clear sense that we need to press the reset button. We need to press, we need to really reinvent, we need to change the paradigm from which we've been developing and that has been guiding most of the businesses nowadays. Next, please. And this also takes us to a position that we need to speak outside of our bubble. We need to involve other sectors. We need to bring others to really be aware of this challenge and be aware of what are the solutions. We really need to bring as many people as possible on board to this agenda. Otherwise, we won't be able to make the changes there that are needed. We won't be able to really implement the transformation in terms of the linear approach that we have been implementing for the last decades or for the last centuries, and change it to a more circular approach. And next, please. This is where ISWA really bring its added value. It's where ISWA inserts itself. As the global association, the global organization exclusively representing the waste and resources management sector, ISWA is present through its members in more than 100 countries. We have 49 national members, so we have direct representatives in 49 countries, three regional chapters already established, one in Latin America and the Caribbean, another one in Southeast Europe, and the third one in South Asia. We've already on our way to establish the African regional chapter and the MENA region regional chapter. So really having regional hubs to deal with local challenges and develop local and regional solutions. Next, please. And so, as a cross-cutting theme, we have as having this background of impacts on the planet's structure, having as a background this triple planetary crisis, having as a background this the need to change the linear approach. We had on March 22 a historic day when the United Nations Environment Assembly, called as UNEA, on its fifth session, approved a resolution to deal with plastic pollution. Next, please. And then we this resolution we need really to be a kind of very attentive to the text of this resolution, because it's not a resolution to, let's say, ban plastics. It's not a resolution to deal with, let's say, demonizing a specific material, but it's a resolution to end plastic pollution. So it has a broader scope. It's not only dealing with this type of material, plastics, but it's dealing with pollution. It's dealing with pollution caused by plastics. But we have, as mentioned before, one of the challenges we have now is to beat pollution. So when we start talking about this process, when we start talking about how to develop a legally binding instrument, and this is another important, let's say, definition brought by the original resolution, that the work to be developed aims to result in a legally binding instrument, so a global commitment, a global binding commitment that we can really be aware of. So it started, and then the resolution gave this mandate to establish a negotiation committee, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. So next, please. And this committee was established by the secretariat and started with a calendar of several meetings. Next, please. The sequence, the foreseen sequence is that the resolution gave 2 years to this process. So starting by the end of 22 and aiming to finish by the end of 24, we already have the first and second meetings of this committee. The first one last year, last November, December in Uruguay. The second one, this late May and early June in Paris. So two initial meetings to define the bureau, to elect the officials, to set some ambitions, some principles. The scope of the treaty have been on the agenda. Now we are heading to INC3 in mid-November in Nairobi. The first one to have a draft text on the table. So this is the meeting when the real negotiations will begin. So this is quite exciting. And then before moving to INC4, like a pre-schedule for April 24 in Canada, and INC5 pre-schedule to South Korea in October, November 24, we'll have UNEA 6 in February 24. So this is an important milestone, because UNEA 5 was the body, the UN body that approved the resolution. UNEA 6 is the subsequent meeting of this Environment Assembly to, let's say, review, analyze, update the mandate given, and it's also possible to adjust any course that is needed from February onwards. So we really need to be active. We need to also have some dedication towards UNEA 6, because it's from where the resolution emerged, and it's the most like the highest level body that can review the process and make any adjustments if needed. So next, please. But when we are dealing to beat when we are dealing with a kind of like a plastic waste, we need to be aware that we are talking about 350 something million tons per year. 300 million 50 350 million tons per year out of 2.4 billion tons of waste that is generated per year. So, one of the points, one of the aspects that ISWA is advocating for during this process, it's not only to focus on plastics itself, but to really incorporate a more holistic approach that to beat plastic pollution, we need to tackle the overall mismanagement of waste that is still is registered around the world. We have some billions of people in the world without access to regular waste collection. We have almost 45% of the world's population without adequate waste destination. And if we take plastics out, it will be a positive step, but it won't solve the problem. So this is something that we are really bringing as a message that we need to have sound waste management as a basic human right for all. And this process gives us a unique opportunity to raise this voice and to spread this message. Next, please. So, going to a more practical approach, the first meeting, the first session of the INC is kind of inaugural meeting in Punta del Este, Uruguay, last year, in which we had this next, please, the multi-stakeholders forum. So it was a pre-meeting before the official assembly of the INC was convened. The multi-stakeholder forum gathered more than 2,000 representatives from governments, from the academy, from the NGOs to discuss really what would be the scope, the principles, the aspect of this process. From ISWA side, we took with us some key messages. One, and I would say our flagship, our key message was the one I just mentioned, that we need to ensure sound waste management as a basic human right for all. We need to ensure a holistic approach. We need to have a just and equitable transition because we have millions of informal workers depending on this job to make their way of living, and we need to ensure good governance and funding for this process. So those were the key messages we took with us for this first meeting in Uruguay. Next, please. Then we had to Paris. We had to the second session with arriving in Paris. This procedure, this negotiation committee, still had some pending bureaucracies to deal with, some items of the internal regulations, some items related to the bureau have been postponed from Uruguay to Paris. So in Paris, let's say all discussions were kind of like I stuck until Wednesday, so until the middle of the week is scheduled for the INC. Afterwards, we had some solutions and some clarification so we could move, but at the end, we only had 2 days to really deal with the content of the matter. And it was good. Some points were really and importantly arising from this meeting, but we still have a lot of work to do towards Nairobi in November. Next, please. So from ISWA side, we organize the side event. Alan will bring some more details on that. We participated in some of the official sessions, and we launched this publication titled Key Elements to Beat Plastic Pollution Towards a Legally Binding Instrument, a publication that is structured in five topics, five main topics. So, first one, reduction, because upstream measures must be our main goal. Second one, circularity, and here just a kind of like a side comment. We need to really define what we intend to mean when we talk about circularity. It's a strong definition brought by the zero draft, but I still miss a clear comprehension of what we aim when we are talking about circularity. Then we brought also a topic related to sound waste management and leakage prevention, governance and funding, because it's instrumental, and sustainable communities, talking about just transition. Next one, please. And we, let's say, we close this publication with our suggestions of principles for the plastic treaty, considering that this instrument must be a global instrument, must be an international instrument to be internalized nationally by the different countries. So we need to deal with this topic on an international and global perspective, but what we decide at this global level must be comprehended and internalized by each country. So here is another challenge, and this is for us an important aspect uh, uh, that subsidize our suggestion that we need as principles a collaboration. We cannot solve it in silos, in isolated measures. We need innovation, research, and development. We need awareness raising, let's say a global and overall awareness raising, and we need equity. We need really to have this kind of embracing all those who are working in this agenda. So next, please. Now we are heading to the third meeting of INC. We have dates. It's mid-November. Next, please. We have plans, we have structure, we have our task force, the ISWA task force that has been established to coordinate, to catalyze actions towards these activities. This initiative is ready to go, and we would really be willing to gather as many supporters as possible, as many inputs, suggestions, comments, and efforts towards a joint action, so we can really be influential, that we can really ensure that the final text, the final treaty will deal with the core challenge to beat plastic pollution, and will be a transformative one towards a more sustainable future. So I will stop here, shift back to Alan. He will give us some more details on how we are working towards INC3, and please feel free to contact me if you have any doubts, if you want to join our task force, if if you have questions, if you have comments, we'll be open to receive and to host any of you during our future meetings. And I look forward to seeing you soon, hopefully in our World Congress late October in Muscat, Oman, 30th of October to 1st of November. The ISWA World Congress will be for the first time in the Middle East. Otherwise, we meet each other in Nairobi in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carlos. And also thank you so much for being so instrumental into pushing forward this very important task that ISWA has taken. Um, we are very excited and motivated that also we have your full support, and the organization as well feels it, of course. Now I will go ahead and present a little bit about um, the action we are taking as ISWA towards INC3. As Carlos already mentioned, we have been working very much into delivering sound representation in the INC process. From our side, we have created a special task force on the plastic pollution treaty with the objectives of develop policies and give input to the treaty negotiations, establish collaboration with other stakeholders, mobilizing ISWA members, and communicating and sharing knowledge. We have been present in every single one of the events of the INC, and we have been providing specific input in, um, in the specific requirements that the Secretariat has called. Also, I want to give a little bit on recap on what happened in the last INC2, what happened in Paris. There were a lot of negotiations, and there were some interesting steering dynamics between two different groups, of course. And some say it takes two to tango, but in this case, it's more than two if there are many. Um, but but um, but some of the main, let's say, different viewpoints were between the mandatory or detailed requirements against a voluntary and general approach. Upstream reduction versus leakage control of waste management is also something that was very present in the agenda, demanding discussions, but final outcome was as planned, and the zero draft has been developed and is ready to be discussed at INC3 in November 2023. The zero draft is a recopilation of all the insights that the Secretariat has taken from the delegations and also from observers in order to present a potential wireframe on how this treaty could look like. And it's very important for us ISWA to understand what is in here and what it is important for us to push forward as well. The INC2 the INC2 in Paris also had an ISWA hosted side event in collaboration with French members and partners. We had a very solid event on that we were able to summon a very wide variety of stakeholders, and we discussed together, launched initiatives, presented new ideas and positions as well. And it was a very fruitful event that I'm sure that for the ones that were there felt the same way. Um, we also have an active team working specifically on INC2 in this case. Carlos was a speaker at official side events, enabling change at local, national, and regional levels. And then we also were very active in attending other important side events and stakeholder meetings in order to be present and in order to bring forward as well the perspectives of ISWA towards the creation of this instrument. INC3 Nairobi is gonna be held from the 13th to the 17th of November. Between INC2 and INC3 is what has provided input for the specific request of the intersessional work by the INC3 Secretariat about principles and scope of the treaty. We ran a consultation through our expert group, and we consolidated the insights that they have provided us, and we ran as well through validation through our policy group in order to provide the best input that we could in these two specific intersessional work that was requested by ANC. INC4 and INC5 will take place in 2024, and the objective of the whole process is to finalize by 2024, the end. As I mentioned before, the zero draft of the treaty has been released, and from this zero draft, ISWA has identified some potential focus that we could prioritize. According also to the consultations we had with our expert group, one of them, the role of municipalities. ISWA understands that municipalities play a key role in delivering sound services, sound waste management service, integrated waste management system, but as well driving circular business models and circular economy initiatives, because everything in this sector still works pretty much in a municipal level in most of jurisdictions. Also, we identified legacy waste. ISWA has already a task force, special task force on closing dump sites. So we are very much already working on this. And then it's an important topic that we should push forward as well in the context of the treaty. A circular economy approach and circularity. ISWA also has a history of working in a special task force on circular economy. And as part of the new scientific and technological program of ISWA, this work stream is going to be retaken very soon. And I invite you to join us in our World Congress because we will have more news there. EPR as well, very important and very crucial in ISWA, as well as funding, a just transition. ISWA also having experience in the developing world, specifically in the working group in governance and legal issues about the different EPR schemes that also take into consideration the informal sector. It is also a topic that we would like to focus on, and as well the link to climate change. There's also some more specific inputs that ISWA can take. Specifically, the Annex F of the zero drafts of the treaty that is specifically to waste management, Annex D, EPR, and Annex A, Part 2, substances of concern. ISWA has expertise in these three from the different working groups of ISWA. And ISWA is going to keep providing technical input in terms of practices, minimum requirements, harmonized indicators, etc., according to the definitions that the negotiators take when they revise the zero draft. Also, national plans and governance is also something that we would like to contribute, because ISWA has a lot of experience as well with national plans through the national members of ISWA as well that support governments in order to get their waste national plans. And we would also like to contribute in that sense in order to establish the foundations for a national plan to be effectively implemented. And ISWA will also mobilize members and partners to provide input in general as well towards a sound instrument. We care about a sound instrument. We care about an instrument that can be implemented, that is feasible, and that, as Carlos mentioned, tackles the core of the problem. And from more practical steps, ISWA is going to be present at the INC event, and it will take part in the meetings and also side events. We will prepare a publication showcasing successful case studies around the world of plastic pollution mitigation through integrated waste management. The value of ISWA, as well as Carlos mentioned, is representativeness and the diversity of the stakeholders from global north, global south, and with very different approaches and very different realities. So we want to take a compilation of successful case studies in order to present them to be as well useful informing the process on potential action that can be incentivized by the requirements of the instrument. Also, a plastic pollution position paper will be ready by NC3, and we are going to be producing this from the learnings of the ISWA Marine Litter Task Force that researched the issue from 2018 to 2022. Um, so this is also, well, another schematic just to summarize as well on the actions that we are taking towards INC3. But the way forward towards INC4, INC5, and now INC6 is going to be, of course, very, very active for ISWA, as the Secretariat will, of course, require different input. The future ahead and beyond, we want to bring waste to the main agenda. We want to attract the necessary funding as well. And we need to we want to catalyze substantial partnerships. What you can do to support us, please join ISWA and apply to the expert group to contribute to the policy development. As well, we ask you to submit the ISWA publications, the policy publications, to your national contact points, national delegations when they ask for input as well. Ask questions about the need for knowledge and input to report back to ISWA. Join our session at the World Congress 2023, and also support our strategic partnerships. And in this note, I want to also stress the need for catalyzing partnerships that can bring together stakeholders that are in the same objective and vision, in order to work in collaboration and develop common fronts to maximize our impact and influence. A common vision enables cooperation and leverages action. And now I take this in order to as well present you with to our guests, invited speakers, the Business Coalition for a Global Plastic Treaty. ISWA has endorsed the Business Coalition, and we wanted to give this opportunity to John Duncan and Tom Smith, to present the Business Coalition to you, ISWA members, and to explain to you why you should join the coalition and endorse the coalition, and as well to explain the potential collaborations that we can have with ISWA and these common fronts that we are trying to collaborate with. So I'm going to stop here, and now I'm going to give the floor to John. Or
Great. Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Carlos. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks very much for the opportunity to present. Obviously, my name is John Duncan. I work with WWF, but I'm also one of the co-leads of the Business Coalition Secretariat, which we convene along with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. You'll hear from me a little bit first up front, and then I'll hand over to Tom from Walmart, who is the Director of Global Advocacy for Walmart. And really, the opportunity today is to learn a little bit more about what the Business Coalition for a Global Plastics Treaty stands for, and what those kind of opportunities are that Alan mentioned in terms of collaboration. So I think Carlos gave an excellent overview of how we got to where we got to in terms of the kind of negotiation, or the start of negotiations around the treaty. And I think from a WWF and a MacArthur Foundation perspective, we started at a similar point where it's very obvious what the business case for a UN treaty is. It's clear that having a shared approach to the challenge of plastic pollution can really help companies, whether they are multinational or just national companies, in a number of ways. Primarily helping to reduce that operational complexity and compliance risk across different markets, where you've got companies having to adapt to many different legislative approaches, which can be really challenging, where in one country a material may be banned, whereas in another country there's a different regulation around recycling or safe disposal. Trying to standardize some of these approaches would make it really easier for companies to operate. I think in that regard, also, like enabling these businesses to plan their investments companies who've got a five-year, in some cases up to 5-year kind of product pipeline, thinking about what they want to develop, understanding what is coming down the policy pipeline, not just at a national level, but actually globally, and what the targets are that we're all aiming towards, makes a massive difference in how businesses plan their future products. I think the other points that resonate really strongly with businesses around why a treaty makes a lot of sense was the opportunity to simplify reporting across the plastic value chain, making sure that everyone within the value chain is actually talking the same language and reporting on the same relevant metrics, bringing that transparency to the picture. And that's not just at a corporate level, but also at a national level. And then lastly, I think the opportunity to coordinate actions across the plastic value chain. Now, I think many of you will understand the importance of coordination if you are members of an organization like ISWA. But I think the challenge is that we have to do this not just across one sector like waste management, we actually have to do it across the entire plastics value chain. And that's where the opportunity to collaborate at a massive level becomes really important. This is also what started the kind of idea behind the business coalition of trying to bring companies from across the different sectors in the plastics value chain together around a shared vision for what the treaty should and could do. And I think that, on the basis of these global outcomes that you see here of reduction, circulation, prevention, and remediation, the business coalition was founded. And what was really exciting, I think, for WWF and the MacArthur Foundation, we helped to bring companies together to develop both the vision and the subsequent policy development, policy recommendations that have been put together. And it was very exciting for us to see actually how much alignment there is around what businesses, and in this case NGOs, stand for and what they want to see coming out of the global treaty process. And I think reading through ISWA's publications, I think there's a lot of convergence on most of the points, which is why ISWA is one of the endorsers of the Business Coalition's vision. Looking at what I was talking about earlier, who is part of the Business Coalition? So I think you heard from Alan about what the waste management sector or the solid waste sector looks like, but the Business Coalition looks more broadly than that sector and brings in financial institutions, many of the bigger multinational brands and retailers, as well as converters and producers, as well as obviously the waste management sector, and you'll see ISWA's logo here represented as well as businesses and business organizations and other NGOs. So it really is a kind of broad church of organizations that recognize the importance of having an ambitious binding treaty in place. Just to kind of touch on the question of why join the Business Coalition. So I think all of you on this call are obviously members of ISWA already, but the Business Coalition is set up specifically to talk to governments and other stakeholders around what business wants to see in the global treaty. And the Business Coalition has this opportunity for you to join this group of leading businesses from across the value chain to be part of this voice calling for an ambitious treaty. And that I'll go into a little bit about how we develop policy recommendations, but there's that opportunity for the individual members to participate in that global policy development process to ensure that we do get this level playing field, which we believe will make such a big difference in solving the plastic pollution crisis. And lastly, obviously, you have, again, in ISWA, an opportunity through the task force to engage in the treaty processes. Through the Business Coalition, the idea is really just to try and keep you up to date in what is happening, and whether that's in partnership with ISWA or directly as a member of the Business Coalition. The idea is to make sure that you understand what the different policies are that different stakeholders are promoting, and how they might kind of impact on your own businesses going forward. I think what's really important to understand about the Business Coalition is that where the real value comes from is the fact that it's not just businesses or just NGOs developing the policy recommendations. It is a kind of a really collaborative process, which obviously is convened by the Secretariat in the MacArthur Foundation and WWF. But the way that it works is we have developed a policy working group of about 30 different companies who volunteered to join that. They are all members of the coalition. And in partnership between the policy working group and the Secretariat, policy recommendations are developed, which are then surveyed to all of the coalition members, and I think probably something similar to the way that ISWA develops its policies. Coalition members have the opportunity to provide their feedback, and only on the positions where there's real alignment between the coalition members, the policy working group, and the secretariat do those positions actually become formal recommendations of the business coalition. So it's just to highlight that it is a joint and collaborative effort, and that the policies that the companies and the business, the secretariat are promoting and advocating for have really been through quite a thorough process before they are put out there and engaged with governments and advocacy efforts. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Tom, who's obviously one of a member. Walmart is a member of the Business Coalition, but Tom, in his own capacity, is also one of the industry co-chairs of the Business Coalition. And I'm going to hand over to Tom to share some of the kind of key messages and policy positions of the Business Coalition and a little bit of the impact of the Business Coalition to date. So, Tom, please jump in.
Thanks very much, John, and thank you everyone for listening in. I think we've got, do you want to skip to the next slide, John, and we can kind of just talk through it? I'll conscious of time and wanting to leave a little bit at the end for Q&A, so I'll kind of rush through these, but I hopefully we can share these slides afterwards as well. And there's also, if you go on the Business Coalition website, there's a lot of our publications on here. So I guess, as was already alluded before with John and the way in which we structure this, there's a great collaboration between various different brands in the supply chain, but also with our kind of NGO and industry partners. And one of the kind of key outputs that we've all been working on is to create these publications and guidance documentation for the negotiators within the treaty. So this is a really important element to kind of give the negotiators kind of real life information of what's going on the ground and what already exists in the business community. And this is really essential to ensure that the treaty is deliverable and kind of plugs into the reality of what the business community are developing. So we developed a bunch of different kind of formal INC submissions, policy documentations on specific issue areas, and then also one that I find particularly handy given the scale and the variety of topics in this subject. The coalition do a great job in developing clear talking points for us all to work together on and to speak clearly at a variety of events within the INC and in other global events as well, just to make sure we're all kind of on point with the same messaging to help raise the impact. John, next slide. Okay, so I'll kind of run through, I won't go through these kind of line by line. I know so John sort of alluded to some of these, but really it's there's key messaging around the kind of legal binding global rules and measures is really essential for us. And particularly, just to emphasize the point that John brought up, for a company like ourselves, with, suppliers and retail businesses across the world in a huge variety of locations, having these consistent regulations is incredibly important and essential for us to help kind of scale up the solutions. So I just kind of going through some of these, I guess. One to highlight, because it's particularly relevant at the moment, is around the zero draft. So we've all been working together to develop some clear kind of messaging and talking points. We think this is a great start to negotiations. It was great to see this come out. Obviously, there was some concern given how tight the timeline the negotiations are. If there'd been any delay on the zero draft, it could have really thrown the rest of the negotiations. So we think it's a great start. And there's plenty of work to still do at INC3, but it's certainly a good point to begin or to sort of develop the conversations. There's also this bit around one more there, John. This bit around kind of organising additional intersessional work on key kind of policy areas, just to ensure that there's kind of really detailed discussions to the negotiators, for example, around kind of EPR and product design. John, next slide. Yeah, so then it kind of breaks down into our kind of key policy positions that sort of, again, have been kind of talked about a few times. Obviously, one is around the reduction of plastic production and use throughout the circular economy approach. I think, I think this is a kind of an essential messaging around eliminating problematic plastics, ensuring specific chemicals and pollutants that pose significant risk to human health are no longer on the market. So there's a lot of work just trying to understand, certainly for the negotiators, what kind of specific products can be put and what kind of international standards can be benchmarked against. And I think really this essential kind of headline point about reducing our use of virgin plastics. And, some of you may be more familiar with this discussion, but it's essential for that number to go down. John, next slide. And I mean, this is kind of stating the obvious a bit, given the earlier presentations. but around the circulation of all plastic items that can't be eliminated. So I think, certainly this first point around these not only establishing but also enforcing, and that's key to actually have a treaty properly implemented, is around these global harmonized standards so that we as a company like ourselves, with operations everywhere, can really scale up solutions in different markets. We do emphasize the need for mandatory design and recycling requirements, and that's again where we try and plug into the negotiators things that already exist in the business community that can be leveraged and then sync up to minimize the kind of impact on companies. Obviously, very much support extended producer responsibility policies, and there's been lots of discussion and support for the important role that the informal waste workers play in this space. John, I'm whispering. I'm going through this super quickly because conscious of time. And then obviously we've got prevention and remediation of the remaining kind of plastics pollution. So we're encouraging these robust waste management practices. And I guess, really make sure we've got these effective regulatory and financial incentives to help shift the landscape on this. Next slide, John. Skip again. One more. Yeah, so I mean, again, I would strongly refer to the website. There's a huge amount of work that the Business Coalition have done. And again, we found huge value in participating in this that can really kind of amplify the voice of all our companies. There's been a variety of engagements throughout the INC process, bilateral meetings with member states. And what I found, we participate in a lot of global negotiations. What we found particularly valuable with this group, and a real sign of its success, is that member states are coming to the group to ask for our opinion and guidance and expertise, rather than it being the other way around. And I think that's a real reflection of how well respected this group has become. So yeah, huge amount of bilateral conversations, loads of promotion on social media. Again, we found it really valuable to help kind of navigate the space and push out the messaging. All the different groups have been sending out some great messaging on this. And yeah, there's a bunch of news stories and articles. Again, you can see it in the deck. Obviously, if you Google it, I think it's been great to get the message out of how businesses are collaborating together. And again, reflecting in when we're at these treaty negotiations, we're getting member states coming up to us and requesting our meetings to help them shape the negotiations. There's been a bunch of also side events. We had at the UN General Assembly, last week, a climate week, and then last year as well, lots of side events bringing businesses and various different stakeholders and governments together. So it's been kind of really, extremely useful for us and other members to help kind of galvanize action on this agenda. John, next slide. I'm not sure if there was one. Oh, yes.
Thanks, Tom. I think this
yes.
one's I'm gonna jump back in here, but thank you very much for presenting. And I think to the members who listening in, I mean, the value of having Walmart with its supply chains aligning with the Unilevers and Coca-Colas and all of the other multinationals, as well as a number of national companies on these positions, I think gives you an idea of the kind of, hopefully, the power of this kind of voice of the Business Coalition to try and ensure that actually negotiators understand that there is a significant portion of industry that want to see this treaty like really driving the systems change that we need. And so, as I said earlier, it's really exciting for us to see that there is this high level of alignment. And I think for you in particular, just thinking about ISWA, the opportunity to contribute and review the Business Coalition's like policy briefs, I think would be really important. And as you saw when Tom was presenting the positions on waste management, there are specific areas of waste management that we are interested in, but one of the areas where we don't have a lot of members from the waste management sector. And so I think having more companies from the waste management sector join the Business Coalition and help to make those recommendations more robust would be really valuable to us. We have got organizations like TOMRA who are participants, and obviously ISWA as one of the general supporters of the coalition. But we really would welcome some of the other waste management companies participating and helping to drive the kind of detail there. And then obviously there's also that opportunity to collaborate with us at the different INCs and some of the bilateral meetings that we have. We set up lots of bilaterals with different governments, as Tom mentioned, and to have representatives from the waste management sector there is also really valuable to show governments that actually the Business Coalition is representative of the full value chain. And lastly, just a quick slide on how to join the Business Coalition. It is really simple. I think, Alan, hopefully you can share the slides afterwards, but it is really just a matter of ensuring that you can meet the eligibility criteria and you're happy with the different ways of working. You have to obviously endorse the vision statement and the objectives of the Business Coalition, which I shared, and then filling in an online application form starts the process. If you do need further support, you can always reach out to the Business Coalition Secretariat team, and all that information will be part of this presentation deck, which is shared with you. So I will stop there. We haven't got much time, but 5 minutes for questions if anyone has anything further.
Thank you very much, John and Tom. And at the moment, I don't see questions that had not been resolved. So I think we can finalize for now this webinar. Sorry, we have a yes. No, I don't see questions in the chat.
There's a
If you have any
hand
questions
from Hanko.
if you have
Hello? You hear me?
hello, yes, we
Yes,
can
we
hear
hear
you.
you,
So
Hanko.
much. Sorry, I cannot switch on my camera. I don't know why. I'm Gary Henko from Hungary. I'm the vice president of the national member of the ISWA from our country, and I'm representing the Association of Environmental Enterprises with 265 members. And I'm also representing the Plastic Cup, which is an NGO cleaning up the Tisa and Danube basin from river in waste. And basically, we are finalizing a policy guidance for the ICPDR, and we will publish it in a few weeks' time. And I hope it can help your work as well. I will be in Oman and presenting about our project, and we are doing a lot of cleanup actions, awareness raising, education, stakeholder roundtable meetings. So basically, all the activities what you mentioned. It would be great to have a, I don't know, separated meeting or discuss what we are experiencing here in the Danube region, because we are living here in Europe, but hundreds of tons of plastic and other materials and other pollutions are floating down in Tiso and the Danube River. So basically, we are in a good position to step forward, but now the situation is quite bad in the middle of Europe as well. So I'm really interested in how I can contact you and discuss details. I already sent you our published book, Aquatic Plastic, and hopefully in 2 weeks' time I can send you the policy guidance. But it would be great to go into details. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you very much, Hanko. Absolutely. We will take into consideration in the task force, and when the first moment that the opening is from the Secretariat request from input in this specific issue, we will definitely get in touch with you in order to also strengthen our input in this front that you mentioned. That is also very, very important. So yeah, thank you. You can always contact me. You have my contact details, and we will, of course, take it from there. Yes, I just want to say thank you to all the speakers, and this webinar is going to be uploaded to the ISWA YouTube channel. Also, all the slides are going to be shared with all the participants of the webinar, and as well are going to make it available in the same link on the recording to the YouTube channel in the ISWA website. So feel free if you want to, or if you want to share it as well with other people that you might think that will find it interesting. Thank you so much, John, Tom, and to all the audience. And yes, I hope to see you in Oman or in INC or in spirit pushing for this legally binding treaty to be a success. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.